Max Kanya, and this is my self-reflection. So first of all, I want to talk about heteronormativity. Heteronormativity is a socio-cultural system that assumes the existence of only two sexes and genders, and it creates a gender binary. Essentially, human relationships, both romantic and sexual, are sorted into a binary where it can only be between a man and a woman. Personally, this shows up in my life being a queer masculine, and I am primarily attracted to men or masculines. Quoting Vincent and Kaminga, gender roles are understood within a narrow, stereotypical, and prescriptive boundaries, and the source of explanation and cure for sexual maladies is sought strictly within the individual rather than looking to the social context within which the definition of normal and deviant arises. Pathologizing my identity has legal, social, and tangible consequences for me. So I deal with both a bit of internalized homophobia. This pathologization of homosexuality and queerness in general also makes it so that our existence is pushed onto the periphery, is pushed into the margins, and by doing that, homonormativity, as we'll explore later, has ways of accepting or allowing dangerous and risky behaviors to take place, are co-opted by people who exhibit risky behaviors, but they are not confronted. Moving on to cisnormativity. Cisnormativity is the assumption that we're all cisgender and that our gender identity aligns with the sex we are given at birth. I identify as cisgender, but I also want to make it clear that I identify as queer, and also that a lot of non-binary values definitely resonate with me because it gives a freedom to express yourself outside of the binary. Unterhalter, I think I'm saying that name right, in the Morel, Jukes, and Lindiger reading, describe Nelson Mandela and his kind of masculinity. He embodies a new masculinity, an egalitarian masculinity, one of non-violence and non-aggression. I was wanting to embody this, and I think this is something that I still want to embody in my daily life, but I definitely experienced a form of alienation in trying to express this identity in a cis heteronormative patriarchal construct that does encourage, and also not only encourages violence but necessitates violence to be masculine. Because of this alienation between my own masculinity and the way I was supposed to act out masculinity, I did have a moment of questioning my gender identity, which is why I do resonate a lot with non-binary thinking, but I still identify as cis masculine or cis male. And I wanted to talk about the Vincent and Kaminga reading again. They talk about a rigid model of transsexuality. So it emerged, which became entrenched in medical communities and mirrored in the way in which transsexuals began to speak and understand themselves. This kind of narratives and the way that we speak about each other and ourselves in the queer community does prioritize a binary, even in a genderqueer context. Judith Butler, quoting Simone de Beauvoir, and she says, "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman." Gender, in a lot of ways, is not just inherent, it's performed. Think about intersex people and the argument around genitalia. If a woman has a vagina, then why are there women with testicles and peni who are born like that? It's not a transsexual issue, it's people who are born intersex. Homonormativity, which is the convergence of LGBTQI goals and norms which are associated with heteronormativity, being a queer or gay person in the prioritization of trade and deal trade. The kind of language has been used to create a kind of image of a masculine man who is straight acting, who is able to pass as being straight, and who embodies a lot of the cisgendered, heteronormative, and cisnormative patriarchal standards that we are told as gay men we need to embody, and that we are punished for not embodying. Matabeni's Queering of Cape Town and his letter to the mayor of Cape Town for the Pride. So I'm going to read a section of that for you that I thought was really relevant. Black lesbians, trans people, sex workers, queer persons, gender non-conforming people, and disabled bodies, poor gay men of color, poor queer persons, black radical queer feminists. These are bodies for whom gay Cape Town suffocates. Stella Inyanzi also talks about how the role of white South African queers in the LGBTQIA movement is just as colonizing as it is empowering. Being a queer African is much larger than just being from this one nation. In 30 Years of Male Daughters, Female Husbands, Magdala S. 2021 talks about how we need to avoid relying too heavily on a body-centric interpretation of gender, which is merely upholds a colonial and Eurocentric gaze, and which male power and patriarchy in African societies persists. I also do feel alienated by my position in the queer community because of the white racist undertones in a lot of queer spaces. And Stella Nyanzi also talks about if queer is indeed an open invitation to all of us opposed to essentialist, patriarchal, heterosexist, heteronormative binary configurations of sexual orientations and gender identities, why do I repel queers? And I feel like someone who also sometimes struggle with being queer and repelling other queers from me, I can relate to that feeling of not feeling like I belong in this space. So question 2 speaks a lot about intersectionality to me. According to Kimball Crenshaw, 1989, intersectionality entails the overlapping forms of discrimination and the unique obstacles it creates for marginalized individuals. Stella's quote, she talks about how beyond race, skin color, hip size, and a simplistic interpretation of my physical presentation, I claim Africa as a geosocial political position. I am very often told that I am not African because of the way I look or the way I speak or the things that I have grown up around. So in terms of racialization, I am a benefactor of white privilege, and being masked and white in a heteronormative but also Eurocentric racist society gives me a lot of advantages that I know a lot of people do not have. However, once I make my non-white or my indigenous identity known and my beliefs well known, there is almost a sense of distrust, alienation, and superstition from the same white institutions which were supposedly benefiting me. My identity is almost always in crisis, and in this, it bleeds into the way that I think about my gender. If something is so personal and something that is so intrinsic to you as your race is almost always debated, then other aspects of your identity are also going to be questioned. At least that's how I feel, and that's how I've been journeying. I'm in the financial middle class of an unequal society. I am accustomed to hard work, but also privilege at the same time. I'm aware of the socioeconomic and political inequities around me, but I also have the safeguards and the access to support systems that not many other people have. For example, a medical aid to seek mental and also physical assistance at a private doctor. In terms of health conditions and abilities, I'm an able-bodied person. I have all of my limbs. I was not born with a chronic illness, nor was I born with a physical disability. However, I am someone who is on a mental health journey. So I am someone who has been subject to a lot of trauma in their life. Interestingly enough, the trauma around male figures in my life stems from having a living father who is absent. Okay, that's me. What's going to be very interesting is seeing both the differences but also the similarities I have with Zenande.
Smile. Hi, this is okay? Lock. Okay. I would say I think only one concept applies to me fully, because in a sense I identify as a female. I am in a sense like Cisnormativity deals with like being your gender identity is assigned to, well, links to your sexual orientation, the one that you were given at birth. So I am confidently, I'm a female and I identify as a woman. But in the heteronormativity sense, I think I would have to talk about, my gay awakening, quote unquote. And the fact that I think in Matabeni 2015's reading, I want to say they because I don't know the pronouns, they really made a quote, and I'm going to directly quote them. They said, Brown's self-identity of pansexuality might be among those categories of non-heteronormative sexual identities covered by the plus sign in the LGBTQIA acronym. When it came to my turn to own up to about my identity, I revealed that although I am firmly heterosexual and comfortably cisgender, I also identify as queer. And I resonate with this because I think growing up in an African household, we are kind of pushed this narrative. Well, we all assume that if you're assigned or you are born a woman, you're automatically attracted to a male. And I think I grew up with that assumption too until grade 10, when you realize that maybe I do not find just men attractive. I find maybe women or people who are gender non-conforming. And that was a very scary experience because I think the concept of heteronormativity says that anything outside of that is seen as abnormal. And I think what I was feeling was probably abnormal and incorrect, which I think is not the case because we're living in a society which is very accepting of various types of sexual orientation. So for me, an African child, to still be questioning and to go through what I went through and the silent inner conflict that I was going through is really a reflection of how, and it does say in also Atang et al. 2012, how, many African women and men still also remain distinctly pro-heterosexual. And that was a reflection of my, how I grew up in my life. So, yeah. So I would more tap into the concept of intersectionality, and my definition of it looks at how overlapping gender identities such as, or markers such as age, race, class, religion, all of that creates unique experiences amongst individuals, especially in an African context. I think we all grew up with the idea that being a woman, we all have the same shared experiences, when in actual fact that may not be the case. And I want to take this quote from Namake, 2004, and she made this comparison of someone entering a more westernized field to being a chameleon. So she says, when you go into and I'm not going to say the word because I don't want to pronounce it, but the meaning is the land of the white, walk like a chameleon. According to my great uncle, the chameleon is an interesting animal to watch. As it walks, it keeps its head up straight, but looks in different directions. It does not deviate from its goal and grows wiser through knowledge gleaned from the different perspectives it absorbs along the way. If it sees its prey, it does not jump and moves ahead and grabs its prey. It does not jump on it immediately. First, it throws its tongue. If nothing happens to its tongue, it moves ahead and grabs that prey. The chameleon is cautious. When the chameleon comes into a new environment, it takes on the color of the environment without taking over. The chameleon adapts without imposing itself. So, I see that. Sorry, as a black Xhosa woman in South Africa who grew up in a predominantly white private school, I think firstly, as someone who didn't grow up in the Eastern Cape, I did not know how to speak Xhosa. So already I was at a disadvantage because people were dissecting my identity as a black Xhosa woman, saying you weren't really true to Xhosa if you couldn't speak it, if you couldn't click, if you couldn't do all those stuff. And then, so that means I had to adapt from being someone who was born in Gauteng, surrounded by kids who didn't speak my home language, to a place that did, and proudly. I had to learn, I had to almost educate myself about a language and about a culture that I was presumably born into, because I both have Xhosa parents and a Xhosa family. So ironically, how am I not supposed to know what Xhosa and what my culture is? You know what I'm saying? So I think that concept of me having to take a new form and a new color in order to adapt and to fit into this new environment, I had to learn Xhosa, I had to be one of them, I had to speak like one of them. But in the same breath, being in a predominantly white school, you couldn't be too black, because the assumption that black people are aggressive, they're very loud, and that kind of alienated us from all the white kids. And I I am a chameleon. I like to move into different spaces. I had white friends. I was close to the white kids, but I think there was no space that made me feel welcome because I was too black for the white kids and too white for the black kids. So that there was this awkward area where I did not fit in. And I think also growing up, we only had girls at home, so there was no proper male figure besides my father, who was, I guess, the balancing being. So I took a role of being masculine and feminine. I was the one who was still carrying stuff at home because I'm the oldest, and yet I started to perform my gender role in cleaning. Because as an African child, you must know how to do domestic work, but being an older sibling, you must still be able to take care of things, be present, be always available. So yeah, I think I've been a lot of things. There's just not been a space that occupied me. So yeah. So we're going to compare and contrast our experiences. I think firstly, the first comparison would have to be the metaphor of being a chameleon in various social spaces. I'm going to say in my perspective, I think it would be more on a racial side, and being someone who's black, middle class woman in Max's side.
So yeah, I would also say I was a chameleon because I enter different hegemonic spaces as a person trying to claim and trying to embody what it means to be a person of color, entering hegemonic spaces of blackness. So spaces that have predominantly only black people in it because of the way apartheid has left a mark on this country, and having to really prove to the people in those spaces that you do mean no harm, that you will be able to interact, that you will be able to actually engage them properly by understanding their culture, trying to learn parts of their language, pronouncing names properly.
Yeah.
Sorry, God.
Okay.
And I do usually.
It's okay.
It's
okay,
darling.
But even with me, I have had to prove my blackness, even though you could physically tell that I am black. I've had to change my accents and the way I speak with certain groups because in some cases it's not deemed acceptable to sound so black with white kids and to sound too white with black kids. So yeah, there's that concept.
Yeah.
You continue, friend.
I think what we were saying, just basically I think we both have to walk with the chameleon, and I think the thing that we were talking about earlier today is that we both lead. This means that we both lead with empathy, we both lead with caution, and we both lead with a sense of trying to really understand what each situation is going to need from us in a way that I can't say for everyone, but when you have these experiences of not really fitting in and having to kind of alter your personality, alter the ways that you think, talk, etc., you adapt. And I think that story of adaptability by two people who look, sound and come from different places is very interesting. Yeah,
it's kind of interesting. Also, like what you said earlier on, I made the assumption that Max was white straight, but in fact Max was not white. So that just shows how we as a society, we make assumptions first without even getting to know a person or getting to know where they come from. Because even with me, people assume that I'm whitewashed, but they don't even know that I didn't grow up in the Eastern Cape. I was born in Gauteng, so I didn't have that exposure to Xhosa, hence why I sound like this. Anything else?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
What's the contrast?
Contrast, I think we did. We said we said it's similar, but we also come from different backgrounds. We speak very different languages in terms of we both are trying actively to learn Xhosa, and I think we speak languages at home. We speak with different. When I say languages, we speak to different cultural things. So it's not that we speak two different opposite languages, but my mom speaks with an English kind of American and speaks to English American references and experiences. So when I say language, I don't just mean Xhosa, Zulu, and then where we come from. I think it's interesting because racially and gendered, we are very different.
Extremely.
And the way that the world will perceive us is very different.
Yeah.
So the kinds of privileges we will
get.
receive
Yeah.
is going to be very different. The way that you have to alter your personalities based on how people will perceive, the angry black woman stereotype.
Yeah, the way I have to like continuously prove myself that I am not incompetent and I'm not stupid because I'm black or a woman is like, that's a constant battle on its own. Yeah.
And Bell Hooks talked about it.
Yes, she did.
And also, having to try and go into spaces trying not to dominate and not to take over and not to accidentally cause issues because of the whiteness and because of the white experiences that I've had.
Yeah. That's basically it. Yeah. We did it! Thank God!
Okay. I'm gonna send all of this to you?
No, you can actually airdrop it to me right now.
Okay.
Done.
So
I must label it. Okay. So.
I'm gonna airdrop to you, chommie. Not on
They never gave that, I won't lie. It's actually not an iPhone. What are you actually doing? It's not actually on an iPhone. I'm a full stop. It's not. What are you doing?
I'm trying.
It's not gonna work. It actually with the iPhone.
Oh.
It never gave an iPad and a phone will work. Like it actually never gave that.
Oh my god, we're still recording. You're a little behind the scenes.
It actually never gave like